Jamie, you just went full circle on me, which is beautiful. Perfect example, like with the character Joan and Ruthless. Most actors, I used to do it too when you're in the beginning. When you read something, you're like, I would never do that. Or you judge your character. What a stupid person, like Joan and Ruthless. What an idiot. Like, how the hell? You're so smart. You're supposed to be this mathematician genius type of person, and you end up in a cult and you can't get out. What's wrong with you, you idiot? But you have to be an objective observer. And that's when the empathy kicks in. I accept that I somehow ended up in a cult. And this somehow was not the idea as to how I ended up there was not provided to me in the scripts. We don't know. So my guess was what I had to work on. And had I been judgmental, I think, about her life choices, I probably would not have gotten the job. You know, so that's the biggest acting advice I would give.
If you're a professional actor challenged by an increasingly fragmented industry, then this podcast is for you. The Hollywood Actor Podcast is an anthology made up of the stories of actors building their bodies of work by redefining themselves, reframing their goals, and reevaluating their opportunities. No matter where we are in our careers, we're always looking to be inspired and to share ourselves across our community. This podcast offers that opportunity to guests and to listeners alike as we all discover what it means to be a working, professional, successful actor. This is Jamie H. Young, and you're listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. Today's guest is Nadège August. Nadège received her MFA from the Actor Studio program in New York City. Her credits include Nickelodeon's Young Dylan, BET's Ruthless, and the feature film Out of Time, now on Netflix. Watch for Nadège in Season 2 of Ruthless, premiering on BET March 11th. And check out her podcast, What the Fockery, available on all major podcasting platforms. Now let's talk with Hollywood actor Nadège August.
Oh, what a childhood! Chaotic at best, confusing, but also walked away with the ability to fit in anywhere. So, was born in Brooklyn. My parents were awfully young, and they divorced by the time I was 4 years old. I have an older brother. And my mother, who is part French, took us to France, the south of France, for a little while, for about 4 years. And then to Haiti, where my father's from, Port-au-Prince, not because he lived there, but because she liked it there. Oh. Fast forward to all these years later, she still calls it home. It's her home. So yeah, I grew up where I think my first language is mostly French, right?
Sure.
Summers were spent with my dad as part of the divorce agreement in Brooklyn. So that kept the bilingual aspect and the English going. But it was interesting because that is a kid, and I think I've had the same conversation with people who grew up kind of like this, where because you spend most of your academic year, 9 months out of the year in school, and it's a French system, at some point you forget English. And then you come back in the first couple of weeks, I feel wonky. And next thing you know, it's sort of like muscle memory. English would come back and I'd be great again. And Creole. So that's been the biggest, my childhood. You know, the downside of something like that, I was thinking about it recently too, is I've been doing this the artist way. Are you familiar with the artist way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's my second or third round. It's that Julia Cameron book on helping artists unblock. And it's even if you don't have any blocks, it's just useful to have an exercise where you are constantly checking in with yourself and being creative. Anyway, so we had this exercise one week, week 6, where it says, why don't you send 5 postcards to friends? And would you believe I couldn't think of 5 people? And then I realized one of the things that has happened is because I was never in one place for too long, I don't have those lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it did something very interesting to my ability to bond or to stay connected with people. But,
yeah, like you can find ways to connect with people, but over a longer term, like developing deeper relationships could be a little trickier.
It is definitely trickier. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's the downside. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. That's been my childhood.
I was a little bit myself as well. My dad was in the military and my mother's English, and she loves it here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's her new home.
Amazing.
And yeah, finding those real lifelong friendships, it is tricky for anybody. It's tricky for anybody, especially now we're in a very fragmented age where it's easy to check in with people, I suppose, on social media. But to have a genuine friendship that lasts decades really requires a little bit harder work, I think.
It really does, especially for us. I don't know if you've had that experience where as artists, as actors, for instance, our community becomes those who were our classmates or went to conservatory with us or to school. And eventually, as we're all getting older, some drop out. And as they drop out, I find that we can no longer have a friendship because it seems to me, and this has been my experience, they look at me and somehow have decided that they've missed out on something. But what they don't realize is that I put off the relationship. I put off having the kid. I put off having all the things that they were chasing and want and called normal that society has told them they needed to have. I made that choice because I am so intent and determined to do this. So yeah, it's a delicate balance. Don't get me wrong. I've also had older actresses say to me, don't make that mistake. Don't be that actress who misses the boat in having a child. And I'm being encouraged to not do that. But, small price to pay. I don't know.
Yeah, there's unbelievably hard choices that we have to make as individuals. And we have all these professionals and people around us telling us what they think is good for us. But we have to make those individual assessments ourselves. And they're tricky. They're not things we have to answer immediately or over a period of a couple years, but they do have to be answered eventually.
Yeah, they're like little gems that are dropped. I call them messages from the universe, and we get to say yes or no. Now, this isn't to say it isn't something that I want. Of course, I want the life partner and the child and all that fun stuff. But if it hasn't happened, I'm not going to pursue it and force it. I had a friend say to me, finding a relationship is like finding a job. You have to apply constantly. And I thought that was, I know, right? I mean, I was like, yeah, I think I'd put that energy in my career instead, but thank you,
Right.
To each their own, to each their own.
Yeah, whatever you feel is working for you suddenly becomes a fact or a rule. And that's what I like about the Hollywood Actor Podcast. And we'll talk about later about your podcast, where you talk to different people and you get conversations and perspectives from these people with whom they've found a working relationship with their profession or a life choice.
Exactly.
And through that, it's like a prism, right? We can see those colors more clearly and understand the world and ourselves a little bit better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for actors, as an actor, I find that it's such a useful tool in developing empathy, So we'll talk about some of my favorite topics and guests who really, really pushed me to just open up even more about and seeing life in the ways that I never thought about. The possibilities weren't even available until I heard about it. So, yeah.
Was it subconsciously an idea of empathy and exploring the world, finding relationships that drew you to acting?
Probably. I was always a very sensitive child, right? And when you are, and you probably can relate to this if you grew up as a military, what is that term?
Yeah, military brat, they call
it. Yes. Okay, yes.
A little pejorative, but
a little bit, but it is what it is. You find that when you're in a new environment, I know for me, I was highly in tune as to who can I trust. You get really good at reading people and figuring out is this someone I can trust or become friends with, or what's the best way to approach them? So that became sort of, I guess I fell in love with understanding how people tick and what makes them tick. Then this desire to step into their shoes and just sort of like play them, become them, was sort of like, amusing to me. It made for a lot of daydreaming, imagination, imaginary lives. I developed a lot of imaginary lives just by observing other people and watching how they were interacted with their family. I remember my family is very, very old fashioned in terms of how strict they were. Children were seen, not heard. The concept of talking back to a parent was just completely unheard of. So, just even imagining what would it be like if I got to yell back at my mother? Wow. Knowing that can never happen. So in a way, acting gave me permission to have all of these, to do all of that, to emote, allow these emotions that were pent up to be released. That's why I'm such a I'm an advocate and really, really want and believe in arts programs in schools, by the way. And I'm going a little bit off course. But were it not for when I moved back to the States, I was 14. I went to Franklin K. Lane High School, a public school. I mean, think about it. I came from a system where we were all in uniforms and went to an all-girls school, and it was a parochial school, suddenly being thrust in Brooklyn in a fairly not a lower middle class neighborhood, public school. And I found theater there. And it became sort of like this outlet in a way that allowed me to understand or express myself, actually, to express all of these different experiences I was having at home. Yeah. I know with some of my classmates, same thing, like they were going home to these horrible situations, and we get to stay at school after when school's over to build sets for the show, and we stay out of trouble that way. So art advocacy in our system, why they always want to cut the arts program, is beyond me. But anyway,
it's one of the most inspirational programs we have. That's not, it's not a specific path either that is being forced upon children. It's something that can allow children to communicate and express themselves and then become more fulfilled, grounded individuals that can go into any number of fields, I think.
Absolutely. And, studies have shown too, our school system is set up, our educational system is set up to be very left-brained. And the art programs allow for the right brain to be more developed, and that's where the center, I believe, of emotions lie too. So, there's a lot of good reasons why we need these programs to stick around in our school systems.
Yeah, was it through that program, or was there a teacher that you remember that started noticing how talented you are and trying to communicate that there was a professional path for you?
Well, okay, so didn't know what acting was, that there was a word for it, or that I could make a career out of something like that, or that it was even possible. I do remember one of my favorite books to read as a child in Haiti and in France was this line called Comtesse de Ségur. And it was sort of like a series, right? You know how today people have Harry Potter? Well, we had Comtesse de Ségur, at least I did. And I loved, and then I understood that every time I saw quotation marks, there were different people having dialogue and talking. So I would sometimes extract the dialogue and act them out. Right. Fast forward to, I moved to the States, and I see that in the school hall that they're holding auditions for Grease. And I remember seeing Grease. And by the way, I thought that American schools would be like Grease. Like we would all just jump on the cafeteria tables and start dancing and singing, right? I really thought that.
It'd be a lot more fun.
Yeah. So I auditioned and I got the part of Sandy Dombrowski, not because I'm a singer at all. Yes, yes, I got to play Sandy. So my high school was pretty mixed though. We had a good balance. There was no reason why they had to, well, I'm thinking of today's standards, but back then there was no reason why they had to have the black lead. It really just went because they felt like I was the best for that role. And it was, and I got the bug right then and there. But I graduated early. I mean, I started college at 16. So by the time when I told my parents I wanted to major in acting, they looked at me as if I said I was going to major in bubblegum chewing or something. So that didn't quite happen. How I ended up choosing my major undergrad was I was thumbing through all these catalogs. I really didn't understand much about the system, didn't have a lot of guidance because my family as foreigners didn't understand how it worked in America. Yeah. And my school guidance counselor, I remember saying I wanted to go to Sarah Lawrence College. She kind of poo-pooed that idea, told me I would never get it. She was not very useful at all. Oh. Yeah, I know, right? And so I started to just look at majors and what that meant. And I kept on, and finally I got accepted into the College of Mount St. Vincent, which is a private college. I didn't understand that I was going to get into an incredible amount of debt, that there was a difference between a private school versus a state school. No one explained that to me. But why I went there is because they were the first one to accept me, and I was nervous about not going anywhere. And seeing that they had a communications major. And when I looked at what is the communications in there, so to see the listings, and I saw broadcast journalism, I said, ooh, that's like being in front of TV. It's kind of performing. Okay, bingo. That's how I chose my major. Then I minored in history. So, that was hilarious.
It's taking your experiences and then being in front of people and the performative aspect and saying, well, this is that equivalent in the real adult professional world.
It felt that way, at least in my brain at the time. That's what I thought. So then when by then, of course, there was no acting because they did not have a theater program. Apparently that school used to be an all-girls school, and they started to let boys in, but we had a brother school that was Manhattan College. This is all Riverdale, New York, and the Bronx. They had a theater program there. So I would audition there and go play there.
Okay.
And I did just one play there. And again, the bug just kept on gnawing at me. And so when I graduated, I remember handing my mother the diploma and I said, now I'm going to do what I really want to do. And lo and behold, about 9 months after graduation, I had my only corporate job ever held. It was like being an office manager for this small computer consulting firm, and being miserable every day, knowing that this was not for me. There had to be a better way. And I was walking by a newsstand, and I would always grab backstage just because, I was trying to understand how this whole thing worked. Yeah. Pulled it out, and I saw that there were auditions held for the Actor Studio program in New York. And I thought, oh, I'll give it a whirl. And the rest is history, as they say.
Had you heard about the Actor Studio before?
I had no idea.
Okay.
I had no idea who they were, what they were. When I read about the program and it's mentioned who the Stellars were and the story behind it, Lee Strasberg and all of that's when I thought, wow, this is special. This is
and
special.
The TV show, obviously, James Lipton presents
God.
Inside the Actor Studio.
Yes, rip, James.
Yeah. I went to the Stella Adler studio in Chelsea, and we had a lot of tickets for not just the Inside the Actor Studio tapings, but some plays. And I saw F. Murray Abraham and The Merchant of Venice there, and it was a nice little kind of community where you saw that there was a studio, but there was also this professional world of virtuoso actors that wanted to share and commune, and that got me really excited. Mm-hmm. How was your experience there?
So as you can hear, I was still under 20, just turning 20, not quite 21 when I finished undergrad, and then I went straight to grad. So once again, I was one of the youngest in the group, and it was also new to me. Mm-hmm. What happened was a lot of my class cohorts, they were actors already, and they just came in for this professional program, or they had majored in theater in undergrad. They had a lot of unlearning to do. And I was open enough where I had no resistance. It's like, oh, this is how we do sensory work. You're in. I'm not going to argue. I'm just going to do it. So I saw a lot of people resist. And I just sort of like as a sponge absorbed as much as possible. And I'm trying to think back. Overall, it's not a bad experience. I still regret all the student loan debts. They're still with me. If I could go back, I'd try.
They're with us all. It's all right.
I know, it's awful. So yeah, how was it? Yeah, I loved it. Overall, I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself thinking of teachers, scenes that you did, any techniques that you now find extremely applicable as you continue throughout your career?
Here's what's happening. I think eventually there's a little bit from everyone. And I think at some point as an actor, your craft, you end up finding what works for you, or for what I have found is like depending on the part and the character and the role or what it is, I call on different aspects of what I've learned over the years. I'm thinking hard here. I do remember one of my favorite teachers. I'm so glad to hear she's still there. Susan Aston. Susan Aston doesn't let you slide. I mean, as you're working, she will point out whether you're being honest in your work, disingenuous, or if she knows that there's more in there and you're not giving it your all. So she was a taskmaster in that way. And I actually responded well to that up to a certain point. But, she's had that balance of being super loving and supportive, mm-hmm. but also she was coming from that place of wanting us to always give our best, just be as honest as you possible in your performances. So when you have someone calling you on you're not, this isn't coming from a real place, a grounded place, this choice or this behavior. It's what's the word? It's kind of showing it. It's portraying it.
Yeah.
As opposed to having it start from the truth. She points it out. And so I constantly question my choices, only because I keep going back to, is this the truth? Is this the truth? Is this the truth? So yeah, that has stayed with me a lot.
I think it's the best thing you can ask from a scene study teacher. I had Bernard Cummings, Sam Schacht, Jimmy Tripp, for different scene studies and Shakespearean scene studies, and finding out that barometer for yourself and the context of what truth is, and putting yourself into these different shoes, veracity, and how showy that can radiate from your soul, your physicality on different mediums, especially. Ron Burris, where it was a little bit of on-camera technique. So we started getting that a little bit, and I wish I had a little bit more of on-camera technique myself as I've migrated to the TV and film worlds in Hollywood. How have you found that experience in transitioning from your studies, your study of technique and the experiences you had at the Actors Studio to becoming an actor on films and TV shows from New York to then Hollywood?
Yeah, I honestly thought that was lacking in our program. I don't know if they do it now, but being in front of a camera was just not an option at the time when I was there. I'm thinking, it just seemed, it was very interesting with me. I never thought of needing, quote unquote, a technique for that. I just thought, just be honest. Let the camera find you. The camera will, I let the camera person and the DPs and the directors and the lighting people do what they do, and my job is to act. So I've just acted and learned. People are always concerned about the bigness of it all. If you're on stage a lot, you are probably a little bigger than you need to be, and that's possible. But it's easy to modulate and scale where you are. So listen, if the scene is happening in a bedroom and we are shooting in an actual bedroom, I know not to shout. I know not to have huge movements.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I'm not
common sense, really.
I'm not trying to reach someone who's sitting, in row 50 back there. And even by today's standard, you don't really need to do that because theaters are mic'd beautifully now. I'm trying to think. I have, and this isn't to say that when I moved to LA, I didn't take classes to see if there was anything that I needed to learn on camera. What I liked was just seeing those little weird, maybe quirks that bugged me, but mostly me, like, oh, why do I always have one eyebrow that's kind of raised? I always look concerned and worried. So it made me aware of those tiny things that, because today we all have access to a camera now, and in light of this new world we're living in, everything's pretty much happening via Zoom on camera somehow, or some kind of Blue Jean app, or all the different apps now that are available for actors. We can actually record ourselves and find whether or not we have these weird little quirks and self-correct, I think.
Yeah. And when you're making these indie shorts or web series like your Bougie Dilemma web series, there's something to me where I've been finding that seeing myself on camera again and again and again, getting that repetition, just like we did on stage in these studio conservatory experiences, and then coming out. And we both have had these professional experiences on theatrical stages, but then seeing the repetition, the life cycle of us on film that we can control in a more timely fashion has certainly helped me see certain things that were maybe not in terms of larger or smaller, but other things that I could tweak that were these little tips and tricks almost that you do see people talk about on Facebook groups and in books, the 101 techniques for film acting. I mean, there's a million of those different actor coaches and books and classes, but.
Right. Here's what's useful too with these things, knowing, even taking a film class, is understanding shots, right? If it's a wide shot, then you are well, you can't see me, but you're like this size on the screen, it's a wide shot versus, your close up. That's when technique comes in, I guess, the technical portion of the program, right? Because when you're at a close-up, you're intimate, right? It's very close. So clearly,
saving that emotional scene when they have the close-up, which is usually at the end of the film day, or the amount of time that they have to film that scene. Yeah. Usually they do the masters, then some of these wides, and then they'll do coverage, and then the close-up is maybe towards the end, and your close-up might be right at the very end, and then you're all cried out, or something feels a little bit
and you don't look so great anymore.
Yeah, you might not. Your makeup's not on point anymore. Yeah,
right. And also, it depends. Like, having been a guest on many TV shows over the years, it depends on who you're scenes with too. I mean, there are some of these series regulars or the name stars. They prefer for their close-ups to be first. I've seen that, where they insisted in terms of if they're sitting up. Yeah, exactly. So, they get a say. Some of them have said, when it's their turn, they don't think. When they're about to shoot close-ups, they always want to be either the first or the last. It's very interesting. I don't know if they want to be last because they want to see what you're doing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, in order to respond. Or vice versa. Yeah, I don't know. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. But you're right. Typically, they start with the master and all the, the wide shots, and then they do their coverage, and then they go into the close-ups, if any.
To know some of those little tips and tricks I found, especially with filming myself and all the self-tapes now that we see, that we get that repetition now almost on a weekly basis with the amount of auditions that we're self-taping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing that's been fun for me to figure out is what framing looks best. They suggest how they want you framed, But if there's not enough negative space above my head, that looks not so great to me. I prefer a little bit more than most.
Yeah, you play around with that a little bit?
I do. Well, I do. I actually, believe it or not, I do have one person that I'm trusting that we quarantine, quote unquote, together, kind of. I go to her for my self-tape still because I live alone and I sometimes need another human to read with me.
Yeah.
And it's downright impossible sometimes, all the setup to have someone on the phone, audio, and it's just a nightmare for me logistically. So, but when we work together, I'm very clear about what I want when I go to her. Like, I'll look at after every take, I'll look and I'll say, no, I need more space here. Let me see the framing. And so we have a great working relationships in that.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
What was your transition from the actor's studio to looking at professional jobs in the New York City area? Or were you looking to relocate to Hollywood immediately?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, we thought LA was so for vapid people and shallow. Never having been, I had all of these ideas, we all thought New York actors were superior because we have Broadway, we have this, we have that.
Right.
Poo-poo. So when I graduated, I remember my agents after a couple, so I did work a little bit, commercials were there. Black box theaters, lots of getting experience doing like these little projects that are no way career transformative, but getting some training. And lo and behold, I test for a soap opera. And that was huge because I'll never forget going in to the testing via my subways, taking the A train to Manhattan, to wherever. And by the time I was done, they were sending me home in a limo.
Ooh.
So that was a very good sign. And when they didn't go my way, my agent said to me, Nadège, you need to move to LA. You don't sing, you don't dance, so Broadway is out of reach for you. Because at the time, Broadway became saturated with just musicals because producers, remember that? Producers figured out that, and it's true, a tourist, someone who doesn't speak English, they're happy to pay $75 at the time for a ticket, but they'd rather see a musical because you don't have to understand everything, right? You see a show. Whereas a straight play involves understanding and following. So they realized, so at that point, very few straight quote unquote plays were making it on Broadway.
Yeah, the last year I was in New York City, there was one original American play on Broadway that entire season. And that clued me in.
Yeah, that was enough said. So I really resisted. But when the soap didn't go my way, oh, and by the way, 2 months later, the soap was canceled after 25 years in the air. It was another world. So that was good for me to know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Okay, it worked out.
Even the series regulars were out of a job, so.
Exactly. So I basically said to myself, all right, New York, I want you, but you don't want me. So I packed my car and I drove to LA and made it here.
Thanks for listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. If you like this content, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share.